Manchester United 3, Aston Villa 1. We won't spend too much time on this because we've got a lot to get on to with the Champions League. But let's just focus on the big stories are coming. Yeah. Let's just focus on the fact that he's done a very good job, and there's a bit of a divide amongst Manchester United legends about whether or not he should get the job. Obviously, there are some of his friends from his dressing room time that think he should get the job. There are others that suggest that he shouldn't. Roy Keane, I think, said that you would have been locked up if you had suggested that Michael Carrick should get the job 3 months ago. But actually, sometimes you put someone in place and it's just the right fit and everything seems to work. And I wonder whether or not when you're at Manchester United, you need certain characteristics to be able to handle that position. And one of them actually is a very calm temperament and experience of being there and experiencing it before, knowing what it feels like to have the weight of that jersey on your shoulders, Crook.
Yeah, do we know why your mate Roy Keane seems to have a personal agenda against Michael Carrick?
He doesn't have a personal agenda. He's just giving you his opinion. You have opinions all the time. You've been trying to sack every manager that's walked through the door today. So don't have a go at him for having a go at one.
Why does his opinion differ so much when you look at the language that he used around Ole Gunnar Solskjaer when he was interim manager? And it's the same situation. Maybe it is just because it ultimately didn't work out for Ole in the end, or maybe it's because he's tighter with Ole than he is for Michael Carrick. Listen, I'm not going to tell you now if Michael Carrick should be the Manchester United manager for the start of next season. I think the board are handling it in the right way. Sir Jim Ratcliffe was pressed on it at an F1 event at the weekend and said, no, I'm not going to go there. Michael is brilliantly media trained and he bats away every question. Let's wait. Let's see if they end up in the Champions League. Let's see who else is available. The best man for the job for me is already off the agenda in Thomas Tuchel. So if you're going to say to me, it's not Michael Carrick, but it's going to be Oliver Glasner or Andoni Iraola or even Marco Silva, I would keep Carrick. If you're going to say to me, it's not Michael Carrick, but it might be Carlo Ancelotti, I might have a different opinion because it's a massive job. And Roy Keane is right. There are managers out there with better CVs, although I haven't seen the extended clip. When he said there are better people for the job, was he actually pressed on who he would give the job to? Did he name any names as to who would be better equipped than Michael Carrick? Because actually, Ancelotti's got a better CV. Tuchel obviously has got a better CV, but there aren't many out there. There aren't many top-class managers that you can say, right, he's definitely the man.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you mentioned Carlo Ancelotti there, but he's not going to give up the Brazil job to come back to Manchester United, is he? He's going to do. It's not going to be a one and done. He's going to be there until the Copa America in 2 years' time. It looks like he's going to be there for a while. He's not just a one tournament manager. I wouldn't have thought, but we'll see. But it's interesting, isn't it? So I'm trying to work out whether or not you are saying yes, you would take him as the manager or not.
I'm not making a judgment call yet because I think there's still a lot of football.
You make a judgment about everything else very quickly. What's stopping you from making a judgment this time around?
I've taken a vow of silence on this.
You don't appoint the manager. You're not going to be the guy that sort of hexes Manchester United. Just give us your opinion. What do you think? You give us your opinion about everything.
I'm going to wait. Ask me 2 games before the end of the season. I'll tell you what. I'll give you one opinion. Okay. Just because Michael Carrick starts next season as Manchester United manager doesn't mean that he'll necessarily be the right man for the job at the start of the following season. I do think because a lot of the top candidates are currently employed by national teams, that actually there is a scenario where in order to just keep that positive momentum going and keep some fluidity, maybe giving Carrick the job until the end of next season is the right decision. What I wouldn't be doing at this moment in time is sitting down and giving him a 5-year contract. I wouldn't give any manager a 5-year contract.
Okay, Darren, could you do me a favour? Could you just pop out to Boots and get a couple of tweezers because we've got a few splinters to remove from Crook's backside there.
No, it's weird, because on the one hand, I think Crook actually does make a couple of interesting points about the fact that Tuchel would have been the right man for the job, but my understanding is that he doesn't really want to do the job under
work
the
for Manchester United.
And I agree with you about Ancelotti. He doesn't want to work with
Tuchel's not going to do the job because he doesn't want to work with Jim Radcliffe, Jason Wilcox, and the hierarchy that is currently there. That he wants to, and he's
I
quite
think
happy doing the
De
England
would
job.
still
So that
have
one's
many of the
out.
same reservations, by the way. I think Roberto De Zerbi didn't want the job before, so I think they'd have to convince him, the powers that be, that actually something has changed.
Can I just add
Sorry,
to that?
Darren.
Because, I mean, you mentioned De Zerbi a second time. De Zerbi's an okay manager. There's not a single thing I've seen from De Zerbi that says to me that he would, on any metric, be a good fit for Manchester United. He's an interesting manager. He's a storied manager in terms of he's been to a lot of clubs. But is he markedly better than Carrick? Carrick has improved the style of play. He's got a common sense approach. He's got your expensive striker who lots of people felt was a busted flush, scoring goals and looking like a really good impact player. He's got you back into the top four when lots of people felt, even when you were in close proximity, that you had no chance. I think
Top three, Darren.
It's top three. Well, indeed. There are lots of people who look at Carrick and say no, and the reason they do that is because they went there with Solskjaer, and Solskjaer eventually unravelled. But Carrick is not Solskjaer. He's much more, I think, understated. I think there are players that would come and play for a Carrick. I think if you look across Europe, there are lots of younger managers that are taking control of big clubs and doing well. You only have to look at the likes of Vincent Kompany at Bayern Munich. And I understand the reticence to put your cards on the table this early, but I think Carrick is answering every question right now. And if he were to get them back into the elite European competition after so long, attract better players, you cannot possibly say he doesn't deserve the job. And just on Keane, obviously everyone's aware of the little bust up that Keane had with Carrick after being quite strident in his criticism, and Carrick's nearest and dearest answered for him, and then Keane's had a few things to say around that, all a little bit unseemly. That's not for us here on this podcast, but there's clearly background there. And I think one or two people felt maybe even Keane might be a candidate for the job. But I think Carrick has come in. I'll just give you one last thing to leave this one. Only 3 managers have won their first 6 Premier League home games. Ancelotti, Ericsson and Pellegrini. And Carrick, this guy who everyone's so reticent to kind of say should continue to be the manager, he has now become the 4th. I think he's nailing his colours to the mast and making a really good case as to why he should have that job on a longer term basis.
I agree with that. I agree with what Darren said there. I guess, listen, the only trepidation is the next smack in the face only ever seems to be around the corner of Manchester United. That's what's happened for the last 10 years. Every time you think there's light at the end of the tunnel, that light very quickly gets extinguished. So that's why, as a Manchester United supporter, and we all know I am, that's why I'm reluctant to say give him the job. If he was in charge of Chelsea and he was doing what he's doing, I'd say it's a no-brainer. He's the best man for the job. Clearly, he's getting to tune out players.
Very quick thing. I thought this when I was watching the game yesterday. Do you know if we never talk about at the moment the Man United goalkeeper, Solomon Lallands? He's come
Never.
He's come. No one had hardly heard of him before he got there. Every other week, people were talking about Onana. Yeah, he was this, he was that, he was this mistake, that mistake. No one had any faith in him. Nobody talks about Solomon Lallands. That's down to Carrick's management, and that's another good reason why you've got the right man for the job in place already.
Well, I also think actually, and we mentioned this a little bit earlier in his tenure, we had mentioned it on the Sunday show, when they went to Liverpool and he had a really good game up there, it's the fact that he had a couple of really big incidents in his first few games, and it settled down very quickly, and he did go under the radar. That probably actually needs to be a feather in the recruitment team's cap, actually, that they bought in him and he's done a very good job immediately. Also, I suppose if you look at it carefully, Cunha's done a good job and Mbeumo's done a good job. So the recruitment, Šeško's looks like a player. Actually, the recruitment last summer seems to have been pretty solid, actually. We'll move on from Manchester United. For what it's worth, 100% winning record at Old Trafford. They've already now won 12 more points, 4 more games, and scored 10 more goals than the entirety of the last Premier League season, Manchester United. I think he deserves the job. You know, I'm a big fan of his. You know that I've spoken to him on a number of occasions. I think he's just the right character for that football club.